They say some bloodlines were never meant to survive. That somewhere deep in the marrow, beneath names carved on tombstones and smiles frozen in faded photographs, something festers. A sickness that waits, patient and silent, for the next generation to draw breath. This story begins in the hills of Appalachia, where the trees lean too close and the fog never quite lifts, as if the land itself is hiding something. Locals used to whisper about the Merrin family, a name that once meant power, land, and money. But over time, it became something else, a curse no one dared speak aloud. Children born with eyes too far apart, minds that slipped into madness before adulthood, accidents that didn't feel like accidents. The Merrins stopped going to church, stopped showing their faces in town. Their mansion, once white as bone, grew gray with mold and sorrow. It wasn't just gossip. Something happened in that house. Something that twisted the family tree until its branches turned in on themselves. They called it the dark side of blood. It began, as most American tragedies do, with ambition. In the mid-1800s, the Merrins were one of the founding families of the valley. They owned mines, timber, and hundreds of acres of untouched land. But when the Civil War tore through the country, their fortune cracked. Brothers went to war, sisters married cousins to keep the estate intact, and generation by generation, their blood grew thick with secrecy. There are records, yellowed letters, diary fragments, found in the county archive decades later. One line repeated itself across time, written by different hands, but the same blood. We must keep it in the family. But the truth is, the Merrins didn't just keep their money. They kept everything, their sins, their sickness, and their shame. By the turn of the 20th century, the family's decline was no longer whispered. It was visible. The youngest heir, Samuel Merrin, was born with what the doctor called deformation of the face and mind. His mother wouldn't let him be seen in daylight. And yet, somehow, there were rumors that Samuel would one day inherit everything. They say the curse began long before Samuel was born. But it was with him, and what he did, that it finally revealed its teeth. They said Samuel Merrin was born during a thunderstorm. Not just any storm, but the kind that seemed to shake the mountains from their roots. His mother, Eleanor, was found afterward clutching him tight, refusing to let the midwife take him away. The midwife later swore that the child hadn't cried, not once, just opened his eyes and stared. Too old for a baby, she'd whispered. He looked like he already knew. By the time Samuel could walk, he was different. The other children in town avoided him. They said he talked to things that weren't there. He'd wander into the woods for hours, sometimes days, and come back covered in mud, humming a song no one recognized. When asked where he'd been, he'd answer, talking to the ones who came before. Eleanor called it imagination. His father, Thomas Merrin, called it madness. But no one dared confront it, not openly. The Merrins didn't believe in outsiders meddling with their affairs. And besides those who asked too many questions, well, strange things had a way of happening to them. When Samuel turned 13, the old family chapel, a crumbling building behind the mansion, became his refuge. Locals said they'd see candlelight flickering there long after midnight, sometimes chanting. Once, a neighbor swore they heard laughter. Not a boy's laughter. Something older. Something wrong. A letter found years later, written by Eleanor to her sister, spoke of her fear. He's been talking in his sleep again. Words I can't understand. I burned one of his drawings last night. It looked like our family crest. But there were more faces in it than there should have been. Faces I don't know. After that, the letters stopped. Eleanor was never seen outside again. When Thomas was found dead at the bottom of the well that spring, the coroner called it an accident. But the townsfolk didn't believe it. They said Samuel had been there that morning, standing by the well, just watching the water. Someone asked him what he was looking at. He said, "He's still down there, and now he finally listens." After that, no one in the valley spoke the Merrin name aloud. But that was just the beginning. The true horror of what lived in their blood was only starting to rise. After his father's death, the Merrin estate became a tomb with windows, curtains drawn, no visitors, no laughter. The servants who worked there either left in silence or vanished without notice. Some said Samuel sent them away. Others said he didn't need to, that something else did it for him. He was only 16 when the county records listed him as sole heir. The housekeeper who filed the document noted that Samuel's signature didn't look like a name at all. It was a mark, she said. Something like a sigil. Like he was sealing a pact, not signing a deed. By then, he rarely went to town. But when he did, people couldn't help but stare. His features had sharpened into something uncanny. Familiar yet wrong, like a reflection distorted in rippling water. His eyes were the worst. One pale, one dark. Always watching, he'd speak politely to the store clerk, pay in old coins no one had seen in decades, and then disappear into the woods again. Some said he was building something on the property. Not a barn, not a house. Something else. Years later, a group of trespassing teenagers found what remained stone pillars arranged in a circle, each carved with the same twisting pattern. In the center, an iron gate that led nowhere. Beneath the rusted metal, they found bones. Too small to be animals. The police report from 1921 described it briefly. Unidentified remains, possibly historical. No further investigation warranted. But the handwriting changes halfway through the page. The last line scrawled as if written in fear. Do not go back there. It's still warm. After that, the property was condemned. Samuel was never seen again. But the story didn't end there. The following winter, people began seeing lights moving through the trees near the old Merrin land. Voices, faint and echoing. Some swore they heard children crying. Others said they heard singing. The same strange, tuneless humming Samuel had been known for. It wasn't just superstition anymore. The sickness, whatever it was, had spread beyond the house. A family who moved into the valley in 1923 lost 3 of their children in a single month. No trace, just the same symbol carved into the doorframe. The one Samuel had used to sign his name. They called it coincidence. But the old-timers, the ones who remembered the Merrins, said something else. Blood remembers, and the land never forgets. For decades, no one dared to set foot near the Merrin property. The house was left to rot, a skeleton of wood and sorrow standing at the edge of the valley. But time, as it does, wore down memory. By the 1950s, the Merrin name had turned into a ghost story. Parents told their children to keep them from wandering too far into the woods. And yet history has a cruel way of circling back. In 1957, a surveyor named Harold Finch was sent by the county to map out forgotten land boundaries. He didn't know the story. He didn't care. But when he came across the overgrown path leading to the Merrin estate, he felt something shift. The air grew colder. The woods fell silent. His compass stopped moving. According to his field journal, the last entry he ever made, he wrote, "I found the house. Still standing. Smells like rain and metal. The door was open. Inside, the walls are covered in something carved. Not words, symbols. I think someone's been here recently. I heard footsteps upstairs." Harold Finch was never seen again. His truck was found abandoned on the roadside, the keys still in the ignition. In the passenger seat lay his compass, its needle spinning endlessly. After his disappearance, the county officially sealed off the Merrin property, but rumors spread fast. Teenagers dared each other to sneak in. Some returned shaken and silent. Others never came back at all. Those who did spoke of strange things, mirrors fogging on their own, whispers from the cellar, the faint sound of a heartbeat pulsing through the walls. One boy, now an old man, told a journalist years later, "I looked into a mirror in that house, and I swear to God, I didn't see myself. I saw someone else, pale face, 2 different eyes." He smiled, and then the glass cracked from the inside. No one believed him, of course. Not at first. But when that same journalist vanished a week later while investigating the Merrin story, people started talking again. The curse, they said, wasn't just in the blood anymore. It had seeped into the ground, into the stones, into the very air that hung over that valley. And anyone who breathed it in carried a piece of it with them. The Merrin family had been dead for decades. But their blood, their dark inheritance, was still alive. By the 1970s, the Merrin story had become a legend that refused to die. College students, thrill seekers, and self-proclaimed ghost hunters began descending on the valley, hoping to catch a glimpse of the cursed house or whatever still lingered there. But those who came looking for proof often found something else, something they couldn't explain. One of the most chilling accounts came from a photographer named Samuel Merrin. She'd been documenting forgotten architecture across Appalachia and stumbled upon the Merrin estate while following old county maps. She said the house appeared, suddenly, like it had been waiting for me. In an interview before her death, she described what happened inside. The air was thick, heavy, Every step echoed like someone walking beside me. I took a picture of the staircase, just the staircase. But when I developed the film, there was a man standing at the top. His face was blurred, but his eyes weren't. One pale, one dark. I destroyed the negatives that same night. But sometimes, when I close my eyes, I still see him. After that, she refused to talk about the house again. But what came next changed everything. A construction company purchased the Merrin land in 1978, planning to tear down the remains and build vacation cabins. On the first day of excavation, the bulldozer hit something solid beneath the soil. Not stone, not metal. When they uncovered it, they found a set of stairs leading downward, carved directly into the earth. The foreman, Jack Dutton, ordered everyone back. But one of the workers ignored him, flashlight in hand, descending into the dark. He didn't come back up. When they followed, they found his light still flickering halfway down the tunnel, and beside it, a wall covered in names. Hundreds of them. Every Merrin that had ever lived and dozens more that didn't appear in any record. The sheriff closed the site that night, citing unstable ground. The company pulled out within a week. Every man who worked that dig quit construction for good. Some said they'd heard whispering from the pit. Voices calling their names, one by one. No one rebuilt on that land. Not after what they found. Not after what they heard. And yet, some nights, travelers passing through the valley claim they still see the faint glow of a lantern moving through the trees, following the old road back toward the Merrin house. It was in the early 1990s when the Merrin curse found its way back into public memory, not through superstition, but through science. A local historian named Dr. Evelyn Harrow had been researching genealogies of Appalachian families for her doctoral thesis. She wasn't looking for horror. She was looking for patterns. Migration, intermarriage, inherited diseases. What she found instead was a bloodline that seemed to defy logic. The Merrins appeared in census after census, always isolated, always marrying within a shrinking circle of kin. Their names changed spelling through the decades. Merrin, Merrin, but their origins led back to the same hollow in the same valley. And then, suddenly, they vanished. Curious, Dr. Harrow petitioned to access old county records sealed after the Finch disappearance. When she finally did, she discovered something that shouldn't have existed: medical notes dated 1919, written by a town doctor named Abram Kell. The entries described the Merrin's children as suffering from severe degeneration, both physical and mental, likely hereditary. But it wasn't the description that chilled her. It was the doctor's final line. The boy Samuel insists it is not illness, but inheritance. He says the blood remembers what the mind forgets. Evelyn included that quote in her research paper. Within weeks, her office at the university was broken into. Her notes, gone. Her photographs, burned. She told a colleague that she'd been followed home one night by a man wearing old-fashioned clothes. He didn't speak, just stood across the street watching her. She withdrew from the project soon after, claiming ethical pressure from the department. But years later, after her death, her private journals surfaced. Inside one entry she wrote, "The Merrins were not just a family. They were keepers. Something was passed down, something more than blood. The old sickness wasn't a disease, it was devotion." If those words reignited public obsession, a wave of independent researchers and documentary crews tried to uncover the truth behind the so-called Merrin curse. Most left disappointed, some didn't leave at all. But one team, a local group of amateur historians, claimed they had proof that the curse wasn't metaphorical, that something buried beneath the Merrin house was still alive. Their recordings, released years later, are the last known sounds ever captured inside that property. The tape begins with static, low, restless, almost breathing. Then a man's voice, a calm, professional, the kind that doesn't yet realize what it's walking into. "This is day one. We're inside the Merrin house. Time is 24:07 p.m. The audio clicks, muffled footsteps on rotted wood. You can hear the wind howling through broken windows. Someone laughs nervously, whispering, feels like the house is listening. Then a sound, faint, like humming. The same melody Samuel Merrin was said to hum as a boy. The team consisted of 3 people: Jacob Holt, a local historian, his sister Mary Ann, and a sound technician named Drew. They'd brought cameras, flashlights, and digital recorders. Only the audio survived. As they moved deeper inside, Jacob described the carvings on the walls, the same symbols Harold Finch had mentioned decades earlier. He said they weren't random. They followed a pattern, curling toward the heart of the house, like veins leading to an unseen heart. Then Marianne's voice, soft, uneasy. There's writing here, not symbols, names. Our names. A pause. Shuffling. Jacob's breathing quickens. That's not possible, he says, and then Drew, barely a whisper. It's warm. A loud crack, like the sound of the house exhaling. Then silence. The recording jumps. Static again. When the sound returns, Jacob's voice is different, slower, distant. We shouldn't have come, he says. It doesn't want us to leave. After that, only 1 minute of sound remains, a low, thudding rhythm, steady and wet, like the pulse of something enormous. Then a whisper, not from any of the team, close to the microphone. The blood remembers. The tape ends there. None of the 3 were ever found. The equipment was discovered weeks later, half buried in the dirt cellar of the Merrin house, coated in what investigators described as dark, unidentifiable residue. The sheriff who signed off the report quit the force 2 days later. He moved out of state, telling a friend, "I don't dream of the house anymore, but I still hear it breathing." That recording, though banned by local authorities, circulates quietly on the internet today. No one knows who uploaded it. Some say it was found again, unearthed by accident. Others claim the house itself made sure it never stayed buried. After the tape's release, the Merrin story transformed from a local legend into a national obsession. Forums, podcasts, and amateur investigators dissected every second of the audio, searching for hidden meaning in the static, in the breath, in the humming that seemed to echo long after the sound faded. Some claimed to hear additional voices layered beneath. A woman weeping, a child counting, a second heartbeat. Others swore that if you played the recording backward, you could hear Samuel Merrin's name repeated, over and over, as though the house itself was calling him home. But the truth behind the curse wasn't in the tape. It was in the blood. In 2005, a DNA study on historical Appalachian families uncovered a pattern of rare genetic mutations linked to the region. Anomalies that traced back to a small cluster of interrelated families from the late 1800s. Among them was one name that caught the researchers' attention: Merrin. The samples came from distant descendants who didn't even know they shared that bloodline. Most lived ordinary lives. Teachers, mechanics, soldiers, but all reported the same thing when interviewed: recurring dreams of a house they'd never seen, a staircase leading down into the earth, and the feeling of being watched by someone with mismatched eyes. When the report was published, 2 of the researchers withdrew their names from the project. The lead geneticist, Dr. Franklin Moore, vanished before the paper's release. His last voicemail to a colleague was only 8 words long. It's not a mutation. It's inheritance by design. The university labeled it a tragedy. The archives sealed his notes, but copies circulated, and within them was a disturbing detail: a sketch found in Dr. Moore's office depicting the Merrin crest, the same symbol seen carved into walls for generations. Only now, at its center, was a circle containing the phrase, "To preserve is to remain." Those words reignited the old whispers, that the Merrins had never died out, not completely, that their descendants walked among us, carrying a diluted version of that same cursed inheritance. It wasn't superstition anymore. It was biology, and yet, if you go to that valley now, there's nothing left of the Merrin house. Just a hollow in the ground, where the foundation once stood, and if you stand there long enough, people say you can still hear it. The hum slow, rhythmic, like a pulse, like something waiting to wake again. In the years that followed, the Merrin story began to slip once more into obscurity. Time buried it under modern myths, UFO sightings, cult rumors, haunted highways. But there are those who say the curse never vanished, it just changed shape. In 2012, a house fire broke out in rural West Virginia, an old farmhouse miles from the nearest town. Investigators ruled it accidental, but what they found inside brought the Merrin name back into the light. In the basement, beneath layers of charred earth, was a wooden chest sealed with iron nails. Inside were journals dating from 1884 to 1907. The handwriting matched that of Eleanor Merrin, Samuel's mother. The first entries were typical, accounts of weather, crops, sickness. But toward the end, the words began to twist. He says the blood will make us whole again. The voices are louder at night. They tell him things he should not know. I saw the old ones in the mirror. They look through him. The final entry was a single sentence written over and over until the page tore. Why must feed the line? When the news broke, the story was dismissed as hysteria, another viral ghost tale for Halloween. But those who studied the journals noticed something impossible. The ink used in the final pages wasn't from the 1900s. It was modern. DNA testing revealed that the samples on the pages matched no known record, but the sequence, the mutation, was identical to the Merrin data from the 2005 study. Whoever had written those last lines wasn't Eleanor Merrin. It was someone alive, someone carrying her blood. That revelation reignited an old fear, that the curse had never died, only diluted, passed silently from one generation to the next. The Merrins might have changed their names, moved across states, married into new families, but their inheritance, the one Samuel called the remembering, had survived. Even now, there are towns in Appalachia where strangers don't stay long. People speak softly about the families that keep to themselves, children born with mismatched eyes, dreams of humming in the dark. Some things don't fade with time. Some bloodlines don't forgive forgetting. And in every generation, someone eventually hears the same whisper in their sleep, the one that's echoed for over a century. The blood remembers. There's a story told quietly among archivists and record keepers about a file that shouldn't exist. In 2018, a retired clerk from the West Virginia Historical Society confessed that during a building renovation, a sealed crate was discovered behind an old storage wall. Inside were hundreds of deteriorated documents, letters, photos, and what appeared to be death certificates. Every single one bore the same surname at least once, Merrin. But it wasn't the records themselves that terrified him. It was the date stamps. They didn't stop in the 1900s. The most recent one was from 2015. The clerk described one envelope that seemed newer than the others, its seal unbroken, its paper unstained by time. He opened it against his better judgment. Inside, a single Polaroid photograph, an empty field, a wooden marker, and carved into it, a symbol. The same one from the Merrin crest. The twisting circle that never closes. Scrawled beneath in uneven handwriting were the words, "The line continues. Do not dig." He quit the archives that same week. The photo, he said, was gone when he tried to turn it in. Shortly after, several small towns in that region reported a series of unusual disappearances. No violence, no break-ins, no trace. Just homes left untouched, meals still warm, and a faint humming sound heard by the first officers on scene. Every case file was eventually labeled unresolved. Every one of them quietly disappeared from public record within a year. But there's one final detail, one too strange to ignore. Each missing person shared something in common, a distant ancestry that linked back, through generations of scattered branches, to the same Appalachian Valley where the Merrin estate once stood. If you drive through that part of the country today, you won't find a trace of the house. Just miles of forest and fog, and a silence that presses against the car windows like breath. Locals will tell you to keep your lights on or your eyes forward. Don't stop. Don't listen. Because sometimes, in that stretch of road, the radio catches static, a voice humming through the frequency. No one knows the tune, but those who've heard it say it feels familiar, like something ancient, patient, and waiting. And if you stay long enough, the static clears just enough to form words, soft, almost kind. The blood remembers.